Let me start from the beginning, because the signs were there all along. I just chose to ignore them. It was Christmas Eve, and I was standing in my own kitchen, watching my nephew's wife measure the walls with a laser device. The same kitchen where my late wife Margaret had baked cookies every December for 43 years. The same kitchen where I'd taught Brandon to make pancakes when he was 7 years old. Flour everywhere, both of us laughing. Ashley didn't ask permission to measure. She just walked in with her clipboard and that device, clicking it at corners, scribbling notes. I was basting the turkey. 22 pounds. Margaret's recipe, the one with apple cider and sage. "Richard," Ashley said, not looking up from her clipboard, "we need to talk about updates. This kitchen is stuck in the 90s. Subway tile is having a moment. And these oak cabinets? They're aging you." I didn't respond, just kept basting. "Ashley's right, Uncle Rich," Brandon said from the doorway. He'd started calling me that 6 months ago. Uncle Rich, not Uncle Richard, like when he was younger. Not the grateful tone he used when I paid for his college, his wedding, the down payment on his first car. This was different, casual, distant. I'd raised Brandon since he was 9. My brother Paul and his wife died in a car accident on Interstate 94. Black ice, gone in seconds. Margaret and I never had children of our own, couldn't, though we tried. So when the call came from the hospital, we didn't hesitate. Brandon moved into our guest room, and it became his room. We went to his soccer games, his parent-teacher conferences. I taught him to drive in this very driveway. The whole house needs work, Ashley continued. But we'll start with the kitchen and the primary bathroom. After that, we can talk about opening up these walls. The bones are good, but the layout is choking the flow. I set down the baster. "What are you talking about?" Ashley finally looked at me. She had this way of tilting her head, like she was explaining something to a child. "Richard, I know this is hard, but you're 68. This house is too much for one person. All these stairs, the yard maintenance, the property taxes on lakefront property, it doesn't make sense anymore. I manage just fine. Do you?" She glanced at Brandon. Some signal passed between them. "Because Brandon mentioned you forgot to pay the gas bill last month." I hadn't forgotten. I'd been out of town, visiting my sister in Denver. I paid it the day I got back. But I didn't explain this to Ashley. Something told me it wouldn't matter. "We've been talking," Brandon said, stepping into the kitchen. He was tall now, 35 years old, wearing a Christmas sweater that probably cost $200. "After Aunt Margaret passed, we thought you'd downsize on your own. But it's been 2 years, Uncle Rich. Maybe it's time." "Time for what?" "To sell," Ashley said, like it was obvious. "This property is worth at least $800,000, probably more with the right staging. You could move into a nice senior community, one of those places with activities and meals included. No more worrying about furnaces or roof repairs or, 'This is my home.'" "It was Aunt Margaret's home," Brandon said quietly. "But she's gone, Uncle Rich. Don't you think she'd want you somewhere safer? Somewhere you wouldn't be alone?" There it was, the thing he'd been building to. I looked at my nephew, really looked at him. He had Paul's eyes, but right now, they were calculating, assessing. I recognized that look. I'd seen it on clients' faces when I worked as a civil engineer, when they were trying to figure out if my quote was too high, if they could push me lower. "We're not suggesting anything drastic," Ashley said, her voice softening. Probably something she learned in a sales workshop. "Just that you start thinking about next steps. Brandon and I could help with the transition. We'd handle everything, the realtor, the staging, finding you a nice community. We'd take good care of the place," Brandon added. "Make sure it goes to a family who'd appreciate it." I turned back to the turkey. "Dinner's almost ready. Why don't you both set the table?" I could feel them exchange another look behind me. Then Ashley's heels clicked away on the hardwood, Brandon following. I stood there, basting a 22-pound turkey that would probably be too much for the 3 of us, and I thought about Margaret, how she'd always insisted on making too much food. "Better to have leftovers," she'd say. "You never know who might stop by." Nobody stopped by anymore. After dinner, which was tense, despite Ashley's forced cheerfulness, Brandon cleared his throat. I knew what was coming. You don't raise someone from childhood without learning their tells. The throat clearing meant a big ask. Uncle Rich, he said, I need to be honest with you. Ashley and I looked into the financials. I set down my coffee. What financials? The house financials. Property taxes, insurance, utilities. It's a lot, Uncle Rich. Almost $4,000 a month when you factor everything in. I'm aware. Are you? Ashley leaned forward. Because we're worried. Brandon says you worked as an engineer, but you've been retired for what, 8 years now? Social Security and a pension can only stretch so far. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Brandon told you about my income? I asked. Ashley said quickly. Not to be nosy, but because we care. And honestly, Richard, I do this for a living. I've helped dozens of clients transition their parents into more manageable situations. There's no shame in it. I'm not your client. No, but your family, Brandon said. And family looks out for each other, just like you looked out for me. There it was. The guilt card, played perfectly. I appreciate your concern, I said carefully. But I'm not interested in selling. Ashley's smile tightened. Okay, let's table it for now. But will you at least think about it? Brandon and I are at a point in our lives where we're ready to settle down properly. We've been renting in the city, and with Ashley's business growing, we need more space. A real home. Understanding dawned slowly. You want to live here? Eventually, Brandon said. Not right away, but down the line, yes. This house has always felt like home to me, Uncle Rich. It's where I grew up, where I became who I am. I'd love for my kids someday to have the same memories here. It was a good speech, probably rehearsed. And in the meantime, Ashley added, we could help with the upkeep. I could do some updates, nothing major, just modernize a bit, make it more market ready for when the time comes. When what time comes? Neither of them answered. They didn't have to. I looked at Brandon, at this man I'd raised, who was sitting in my dining room explaining how he'd already planned out the rest of my life, how he'd decided when the time would come. Thank you for dinner, I said, standing. I'm tired. I think I'll head to bed. It's only 8:30, Ashley said. I'm 68, I replied. Apparently that means I should be in bed. I saw Brandon wince. Good. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Margaret's side was still empty. I'd kept her pillow, even though it didn't smell like her anymore. Sometimes I'd reach over in the middle of the night, forgetting. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Sorry if we pushed too hard tonight. We just worry about you. Can we talk after Christmas? I didn't respond. The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke to voices downstairs. I checked my watch. 6:47. I pulled on my robe and went to investigate. Ashley was in the living room with a man I didn't recognize. He was measuring the windows. She had paint swatches fanned out on the coffee table. What's going on? Ashley jumped. Richard, you're up early. This is Derek. He's a contractor friend of mine. I asked him to swing by and give me some rough estimates. Just preliminary stuff. You brought a contractor to my house on Christmas morning? He was in the area, Ashley said quickly, and I wanted to show you some options. Look, these colors would really brighten up this space. The dark paneling makes everything feel so heavy. I looked at Derek, who had the good sense to look uncomfortable. I think you should leave. Uncle Rich Brandon appeared from the kitchen, holding a coffee mug. My coffee mug, the one Margaret gave me on our 20th anniversary. Put that down. He blinked. What? That mug. Put it down. It's not yours. Nothing in this house is yours. The room went silent. Derek found somewhere else to be, muttering about measurements. Ashley's face hardened. Okay. I think we need to have an adult conversation here. I'm listening. Brandon is basically your son, she said. You raised him. He lived here for 14 years. This is his home too, Richard. Legally, maybe not yet, but morally, this place is as much his as it was yours and Margaret's. Is that what you think? It's what any reasonable person would think, Ashley said. And honestly, we've been patient. We've watched you struggle here alone for 2 years. We've bitten our tongues about the peeling paint, the leaking gutter, the yard that's completely overgrown on the north side. I was planning to handle the gutter in spring. You're 68. Ashley's voice rose. What if you fall off a ladder? What if something happens to you out here alone? We'd never forgive ourselves. Brandon set down the mug carefully. Uncle Rich, I think what Ashley's trying to say. I know what she's trying to say. She's saying I'm old and incompetent, and you want my house. That's not. Brandon stopped, started again. This doesn't have to be adversarial. We're family. We can work something out that's good for everyone. What did you have in mind? Ashley and Brandon exchanged another look. They definitely discussed this. You move into assisted living, Ashley said. Somewhere nice, we'd help you find it. We take over the house, do the necessary updates, and when the time comes, we sell it. The proceeds would cover your care for the rest of your life, with plenty left over. And what do you get? The rest, Ashley said simply, as Brandon's inheritance, which is fair, considering this would have been his parents' house if they'd lived. I sat down heavily on Margaret's favorite chair, the blue one by the window where she used to read. And if I say no, why would you say no? Ashley's voice had an edge now. You're being selfish, Richard. You're sitting on $750,000, while your nephew, who you claim to love, is struggling to start a life. Do you know how hard it is for young people today? We're drowning in Ashley's student loans. We're trying to save for a family, and you're here alone in a 5-bedroom house you don't even use. I use it. How? 1 man in 5 bedrooms? That's not using it, that's hoarding it. Ashley, Brandon said quietly. But she was on a roll now. No, he needs to hear this. We've been patient, we've been respectful. But at some point, Richard, you need to face reality. You're not going to live forever. This house will need to be dealt with eventually. Why not do it now, while you can still enjoy the money? Why wait until you're in a nursing home with dementia, and the state takes everything anyway? I felt very calm. It was strange, that calmness. Like watching a storm from a distance. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my house. Brandon stood. Uncle Rich, let's just talk about this. You can come back when you're ready to apologize. Both of you. Until then, you're not welcome here. Ashley laughed. Actually laughed. You're not serious. I'm very serious. Fine, Ashley said, grabbing her coat. But you're making a mistake. You think you have all the power here, but you don't. Brandon has rights. He grew up in this house. Any lawyer would tell you he has a claim. Then get a lawyer. I watched them leave. Watched Brandon look back from the doorway, something like regret on his face. But he followed Ashley out, chose her over me. The house was quiet after they left. I made myself breakfast, eggs and toast. Sat at the kitchen table where I'd eaten breakfast with Margaret for 43 years. Where Brandon used to do his homework while Margaret helped him with long division. My phone rang. Brandon. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. Finally, I picked up. Uncle Rich, I'm sorry. Ashley was out of line. Was she? Silence. Because it sounded like she was saying what you'd both been thinking for a while. That's not. We're just worried about you. You're worried about the house. That's not fair. Isn't it? I looked around my kitchen, Margaret's kitchen. Brandon, when you moved in here, do you remember what I told you? Uncle Rich, I told you this would always be your home, no matter what. Do you remember? I remember, and I meant it. This was your home. But it's my house. Do you understand the difference? He didn't answer right away. Then, Ashley's just trying to help. Help who? Both of us. All of us. She's a professional, Uncle Rich. She knows how these things work. Older people holding on to properties they can't maintain. It happens all the time. They mean well, but they end up hurting everyone, including themselves. Is that what you think I'm doing? Hurting you? I think you're stuck, Brandon said. I think you're holding on to something because Aunt Margaret loved it, and you feel like selling would be betraying her. But she'd want you to be practical. She'd want you to be taken care of. You didn't know Margaret as well as you thought. I hung up. The calls continued for 3 days. Brandon, Ashley, even Ashley's mother once, telling me what a wonderful opportunity this was. I didn't answer any of them. On the 4th day, Brandon showed up at my door. Alone this time. Can I come in? I stepped aside. We sat in the living room. He looked around like he was seeing it for the first time. I have good memories here, he said finally. I know. I'm not trying to steal your house, Uncle Rich. Aren't you? He leaned forward. I'm trying to face reality. You're almost 70. This place is huge. What happens in 5 years? 10? Who's going to take care of you? I'll hire help if I need it. With what money? He said it gently, but it was still a dagger. I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to be honest. Your pension can't be that much. Social Security barely covers basics. The property taxes alone on this place are probably eating up half your income. I didn't correct him. Ashley and I talked, he continued. We're willing to compromise. You don't have to move right away. Stay here for another year, 2 years, however long you're comfortable. But let us start making improvements. Let us take over the bills, the maintenance. Think of it like we're renting from you. And in exchange? In exchange, when you're ready to transition to assisted living, the house becomes ours. We'll handle your care costs, make sure you're comfortable. Everyone wins. It was a better offer than Ashley's, more reasonable. That's what made it more dangerous. And who owns the house during this arrangement? Well, you do, technically. But we'd be on the deed too. Just to protect our investment, you understand. The money we'd be putting into improvements. There it was. Let me ask you something, Brandon. Do you know who owns this house right now? He blinked. You do? Do I? Of course you do. Unless... Did Aunt Margaret's name stay on after she died? Because if so, that's fine. We can work with that. I think I'm probably listed as beneficiary anyway. What makes you think that? Because you always said this would be mine someday. And Ashley checked the county records. The house was purchased in 1987 by Margaret and Richard Hewitt. That's you guys. I stood up slowly, went to my office, came back with a folder. This house was purchased by Margaret and me, yes. But 3 years after Margaret was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, we did some estate planning. Do you know what an irrevocable trust is? Brandon's face went pale. What? An irrevocable trust. Margaret and I put this house into one before she died. She wanted to make sure I'd be taken care of. The trust owns the property. I'm the lifetime beneficiary, which means I can live here until I die, but I can't sell it and I don't technically own it. Who's in the trust? I'm the trustee. I control it. And yes, you're the remainder beneficiary. When I die, you'll get the property, but not until then. No matter what happens, no matter how much you want it. I watched him process this, watched understanding dawn. Ashley doesn't know this, he said finally. No, I don't imagine she does. County records show the purchase, but trusts are private documents. You'd have to know to look for them. You let us make those plans. You let Ashley bring a contractor to your house. You knew the whole time we couldn't touch this place. And you let us... I let you show me who you really are, I said quietly. I gave you chances to ask me about ownership, about legal arrangements, about whether I needed help. Instead, you assumed, you made plans. You brought your wife into my home on Christmas morning with a contractor, and you didn't think to ask if what you were planning was even possible. Brandon stood. His hands were shaking. This isn't over. Yes, I said. It is. He left. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, Ashley called. Her voice was different, controlled. Richard, we need to talk about Brandon. What about him? He's not doing well. Since Christmas, he's been depressed, barely eating. He feels like you betrayed him. I betrayed him? You let him believe he'd inherit. You built up this expectation, and then you pulled the rug out. That's cruel, Richard. Even if you were technically in the right. Technically? You know what I mean. Brandon gave up opportunities because he thought he had this safety net. He turned down a job in California because he didn't want to be far from you. He structured his whole life around eventually taking over this property, and now you're telling him he gets nothing until you die? Do you know how that feels? He'll inherit when I'm gone. That was always the arrangement. But when will that be? Ashley's voice rose. You could live another 20 years. Brandon and I can't wait that long. We need to build our lives now. Then build them. With what? She was almost shouting now. We've been counting on this house. We've made financial decisions based on this. Ashley has student loans. We're trying to start a family. Those are your problems, Ashley, not mine. You're a selfish old man, she said. You're sitting on almost $1 million in property that you don't even need, just to spite us. I'm living in my home. It's not just your home. Brandon grew up there. He has as much right. He has no rights, I said clearly. None. The trust is ironclad. I had the best estate attorney in the state draft it. You can try to fight it, but you'll lose. And you'll waste whatever money you do have on legal fees. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, you'll be sorry. She hung up. The next week, Brandon posted something on Facebook. I didn't see it at first. I barely use social media, but my sister called to tell me about it. Richard, what's going on with you and Brandon? What do you mean? He posted this long thing about elder abuse, about family members who manipulate their relatives into depending on them, then refuse to help when those relatives need it. He didn't name you, but everyone knows he's talking about you. I went online. Read the post. It was clever. Talked about his uncle who raised him, who promised him security, who now refused to help him start his own family. Talked about hoarding wealth while younger generations struggled, about selfishness disguised as independence. The comments were sympathetic. People who didn't know me, who didn't know the situation, telling Brandon he deserved better, that he should get a lawyer, that elderly people who refused to see reason sometimes needed tough love. I could have responded, could have told my side, but I didn't. Instead, I called my estate attorney. Margaret, I said, I need to make some changes to the trust. What kind of changes? Brandon is currently listed as remainder beneficiary. I'd like to remove him. She was quiet. Richard, that's a big decision. I know. If you do this, the property would go to whoever else you name. Or if you don't name anyone, it could go to a charity. Is that what you want? I thought about Brandon at 9 years old, crying in the guest room because he missed his parents. I thought about teaching him to drive, to balance a checkbook, to be a man. I thought about paying for his education, his wedding, his dreams. I thought about him measuring my walls on Christmas Eve. That's what I want, I said. The changes took 3 weeks to process. During that time, Ashley called twice more, once to threaten legal action, once to apologize and ask if we could start over. I didn't return either call. Brandon showed up in February. It was snowing, and he looked cold. I know about the trust change, he said. How? Ashley has a friend who works at the attorney's office. She mentioned seeing paperwork. That's a HIPAA violation. Are you really going to do this? Cut me out completely? I looked at him. You cut yourself out when you brought a contractor to my house on Christmas morning. I was trying to help. You were trying to take what you wanted. There's a difference. I'm your family, he said. I'm the only family you have left. Then act like it. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away. I watched him drive off and felt something break in my chest. Not regret, not exactly, just loss. Another loss to add to all the others. Margaret would have known what to do. She always did. That night, I sat in the blue chair by the window and looked out at the frozen lake. The ice was thick enough to walk on, but nobody did anymore. Too dangerous. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Hewitt? This is Detective Morrison with the County Sheriff's Office. I need to ask you some questions about a wellness check. My heart stopped. Is Brandon okay? Brandon Hewitt is your nephew, correct? He filed a report saying he's concerned about your mental state. Says you've been forgetting to pay bills, making irrational decisions, possibly showing signs of dementia. I closed my eyes. I see. We need to do a wellness check. Can I come by tomorrow? Of course. Detective Morrison was a woman in her 40s, professional but not unkind. She looked around the house, asked me questions about my routine, my finances, my health. Your nephew seems very concerned, she said. My nephew wants my house. She didn't react. Can you tell me about your current living situation? I explained everything. The trust, the Christmas confrontation, the Facebook post. I showed her my bank statements, my paid bills, my medical records, from my last checkup in January. You seem very competent to me, she said finally. I am. But I have to ask, why did your nephew think he'd inherit? Usually there's some basis for these assumptions. When he was young, I told him this would always be his home. I meant he'd always be welcome. He interpreted it as a promise of ownership. Did you ever correct that interpretation? Not explicitly. It didn't seem necessary. Until it became necessary. She closed her notebook. Mr. Hewitt, I'm going to file a report saying I found no evidence of diminished capacity, but I'd recommend documenting everything from now on. If your nephew escalates, you'll want records. Escalates how? People who want something badly enough find ways to get it. Not always legal ways, just be careful. She left. I sat in the quiet house and thought about what she'd said. That night, I installed security cameras. 4 of them, covering all the entrances. It felt paranoid. It felt necessary. The cameras caught Ashley trying the back door on March 3rd. She didn't know I was home. I watched on my phone as she jiggled the handle, tried a credit card in the jam, finally gave up. I called Brandon. Your wife tried to break into my house. She did what? I have her on camera. Tell her if she tries again, I'm calling the police. He hung up. In April, I got a letter from a law firm. Brandon was contesting the trust change, claiming undue influence, diminished capacity, elder abuse. I forwarded it to Margaret, my attorney, not my wife. She laughed. They have no case, she said. The wellness check cleared you. The trust is ironclad. They're fishing. What should I do? Nothing. Let them waste their money. The lawsuit dragged on for 3 months. Depositions, document requests, psychological evaluations. I passed everything. In July, Brandon's attorney withdrew. Insufficient evidence. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong again. In August, Brandon showed up at my door. He looked terrible. Thinner, older. Can we talk? I let him in. We sat in the living room where I'd raised him. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. Ashley and I. We're getting divorced. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. He smiled weakly. It's okay. I'm not sorry either. She showed me who she really was. Or maybe I showed myself who I really was. I don't know anymore. What do you want, Brandon? To apologize. Really apologize. Not because I want something, but because I owe you that. You raised me. You loved me. And I tried to steal your home because my wife convinced me I deserved it. That's not who I thought I was. I didn't respond. I know you changed the trust, he said. I know I'm not getting this house. And that's fair. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I remember now who you were to me, who I should have been to you. He stood to leave. Brandon, he turned. Sit down. We talked for 3 hours. Really talked. For the first time in years. About Margaret, about his parents, about all the years in between, about assumptions and expectations, and the difference between a home and a house. I can't change the trust back, I said finally. Not after everything. I know. But I can make sure you're okay. There are other ways to help family. I don't want your money, Uncle Rich. I know you don't. Not anymore. That's why I'm offering. We worked it out. A gift for the down payment on his new apartment. Not from the trust, from my savings, not charity, family. It's been 6 months now. Brandon comes by every Sunday for dinner. We don't talk about the house, the trust, the lawsuit. We talk about his new job, his therapy, his plans for the future. Last week, he brought someone. A woman named Kara. She's a teacher. She shook my hand and told me she'd heard a lot about me. All good things, I hope, I said. Mostly, she said, and we all laughed. I think Margaret would have liked her. I'm still in the house, still in the blue chair by the window, still alone in 5 bedrooms. But Brandon was wrong about one thing. I'm not hoarding this place. I'm living in it. Every day, every room, every memory. This is my home, mine and Margaret's. And someday, when I'm gone, someone else will make it theirs. But not today. Today, I'm basting a 20-pound turkey. Brandon and Kara are coming for dinner. Too much food for 3 people. But Margaret always said that's the point. You never know who might stop by.